Who am I? No one. Just one of the many, or the few. A citizen of the Lord, of the people of Israel, of the army of God's holy nation. The battle was fierce. It was a bloodbath. They slaughtered us. That's how we come to be stood here now. The remnant, the survivors. We marched through the night from Jabesh Gilead to get here. To prize the bodies of our lost heroes from the wall of Beth Shan, where they've been hung on display as disgraced trophies. We'll take our dead home and bury them. We'll bury them properly. And then we'll have a week of national mourning. I, like so many others, stood here with me. We'll never forget trampling over our own dead as we fled the Philistines at Mount Gilboa. We tried to outrun their men, but their arrows overtook us. Very few escaped without a life-changing injury, and many fell, cruelly pierced by sword or spear or arrow. You know, even the king couldn't escape the latter. He drew up sharply with his wound. Looking back as I ran, I could tell he wasn't going to make it from the field of battle. I should have run back to his aid. I could have done. I should have done. But I'd already seen his sons, Abinadab and Malchishua and Jonathan, fall among their own men in different quarters of the fighting. And stopping briefly to watch, I witnessed King Saul begging his armour-bearer to run him through with his sword, to deprive the uncircumcised Philistines of the pleasure of degrading his body in his last moments. I watched as the king's armour-bearer stood terrified, shaking his head. But he wanted to end the life of the Lord's anointed no more than the fugitive David had. As the armour-bearer stood back in refusal, the king placed his sword against the fallen soldier so that the blade pointed to the sky. Seeing the enemy running towards them, he didn't hesitate in throwing himself upon his sword. The armour-bearer, seeing his predicament, thought, too late to run. Seeing him fall gave edge to my feet as I kicked up dust behind me. I ran for my life. Seeing our army flee in the battle, those people in the neighbouring towns, well, they abandoned their homes in fear of attack, giving over the land to our enemy, the Philistines. The next day we all heard what the Philistines had done after the battle. They'd sent word throughout the land so that no one could escape the terror they brought upon Israel. They scoured the fallen bodies to recover the dead king. And then they sliced off his head. And they stripped him of his armour and hung it in the temple of their gods. As for his body and that of his sons, this is what I stare at now on the wall of Beth Shan. The reign of Saul is over. We will bury him and pray to the Lord to raise up someone to come to our defence against the Philistines. Someone greater than Saul. Someone after God's own heart who carries his favour.